ELI5 How are astronauts on the ISS so confident that they aren't going to collide with any debris, shrapnel or satellites whilst traveling through orbit at 28,000 km per hour? Two big things: one, there are many agencies and companies that monitor the crap out of space. They even know where the rocks and stuff are up there. And two, even if you think there is a lot of stuff in space, all the stuff up there is moving pretty slow, and on top of that it is existing on 3 different axes. Like X, Y and Z, so even when things look like they will collide on a visualization, they are tracked and slow, and probably more than 20 miles from each other at any given moment. Check out space visualization and make sure to set the speed to 1x, not 20xp. Everything is moving at that around the same speed in that same orbit. If something was moving faster, it would be in a different orbit. The debris issue comes into play when two things strike, like 2 satellites, and then send out random debris in all different directions at high speed. While these pieces of debris settle into their new orbits due to their new speeds and directions, they can cross paths with other orbits and collide with other things as well. But once everything has settled into their orbits, it's all moving roughly the same speed in the same direction. First, space where they have orbit is huge, much larger than vast oceans on Earth. Second, 28,000 kilometers height is relative to Earth's surface. Even if they hit something, they won't hit it with 28.000 kilometers height, because if something just lingers in space with the speed of 0 kilometers height relative to the Earth's surface, it will simply fall to Earth. It won't stay where spacecraft are orbiting. In fact, if something orbits at the same altitude as their spaceship, it will necessarily move at the same speed. Of course, if the direction is the same. If not, it's 2 by 28.000 kilometers height. Space is incredibly empty. Things like movies really do a disservice to that fact and make it feel like things are incredibly dense. As a broad example, let's take the asteroid belt. Every time I've ever seen this depicted, you'll see some spacecraft dodging and evading hundreds if not thousands of asteroids. In reality, the estimated average distance between individual asteroids is 600,000 miles. 600,000 miles! That is crazy sparse! Space is empty. Debris and shrapnel are not things you have to worry about whatsoever, because they're right. They won't hit anything. NASA and other space agencies keep very careful notes about everything up in orbit. And anytime anything comes even close, they take evasive maneuvers to guarantee safety. It's not too often that it happens, but it does. Text the 20 International 20 Space 20 Station 20 ISS, Trackable 20 Space 20 Debris 20 since 201,999. The folks who have written about the junk tracking are spot on. Another thing worth noting is that the 28,000 km/h is the speed relative to an observer on Earth's surface if the Earth was static in time. The relative speeds from the debris orbit and ISS orbit are much, much lower. This touches on a more advanced topic involving measurement and various frames of reference. Where does the risk come from? If everything was in a perfectly circular orbit, then any debris would also be going the same 28,000 km/h like cars on a freeway. All moving fast, but together. Is it that there are other objects and debris in elliptical orbits that cross the ISS's path, and that's where the dangerous relative velocities come from? Larger chunks are tracked and smaller debris sometimes hits the space station. That's why the big window dome has blast shields when not in use. They trust their shielding, the tracking and probabilities. It's just very unlikely for something dangerous to happen. Not impossible, but very unlikely. Look at this another way. You don't walk around outside concerned that a meteor is going to strike you on the top of the head, right? There's a lot more material in the solar system that's capable of doing that than there is stuff in orbit capable of striking astronauts. The International Space Station can maneuver out of the way of debris if they know it's coming, which means they can avoid all the dead satellites and random spent rocket stages. The stuff that actually hits will probably be many meteoroids that they didn't pick up. They're not. There's just nothing they can do about it. So they take their chances and roll the dice. Just like every time you're behind the wheel of a car, there's a chance you'll get into an accident. You just pretend it can't happen and go about your life. The slow blade penetrates the shield. That space junk is traveling at very high speed, relative to the ISS. It would bounce off. Shields are also why atomics can only be used as suicide weapons, of last resort. We track most things, space is big, and the ISS orbit's pretty low in altitude. However, it does get hit with stuff occasionally. The Canadarm, a robotic arm on the ISS, did get hit with a piece of debris. The space station travels on a defined road orbit around the Earth. NASA makes sure there is nothing on the road. There are many objects orbiting the Earth, just not on the road for the most part. They are very aware of it. They have trained so much for this. And, the station itself have been hit by space junk. They are not ignorant of the risk. That might look like confidence. Space is, like, really empty. You really only have to worry about fine particle collision when traveling significantly farther away, like billions of miles further away. In decades of service, the ISS hasn't been destroyed by space junk even once. So the odds seem pretty good. Why worry about something that has never even happened? Something I haven't seen mentioned is that there aren't many satellites at the altitude of the ISS. It's at around 410 kilometers. This is pretty low Earth orbit. Statistically speaking, they just aren't. That said, though, Elon Musk is personally putting us into a situation where that probability could switch to 100. It's like being on the bomb squad. If nothing happens, why worry about it? If something goes wrong, you'll never know it anyway, so why worry about it? It's like shooting a gun in the air in the middle of the Sahara Desert expecting to kill a random person. The odds are just so incredibly low. I'll add that speed is relative to the Earth. Many objects will be going slower or equal speed to the station.